There are rooms in this world where the walls between realities grow thin, places where whispers slip through from somewhere else. I know because I helped create one. And now, I can't make them stop. Before I tell you what happened, I need you to understand something important. If you're watching this video late at night, alone in your room with only the glow of your screen for company, you might want to reconsider. What I'm about to share isn't just a story. It's a warning. And some warnings, once heard, can't be unheard. Welcome to the Obscuralore Vault. Tonight's account. The government experiment used psychological triggers to open paranormal awareness. We can't close what we opened. Part 1. Recruitment. My name doesn't matter anymore. 6 months ago, I was Dr. Marshall Kent, neuropsychologist specializing in altered states of consciousness. Today, I'm just another voice in the dark, trying to warn you about what we've done. It started with an email. Subject line: research opportunity, classified, top-tier clearance required. The sender was listed simply as DPEP, the Department of Perceptual Expansion Projects. I'd never heard of it, but the Gov address seemed legitimate enough. The message was brief. Your research on sensory deprivation and its effects on limbic system activation has caught our attention. Would you be willing to discuss a short-term, highly compensated consulting opportunity? I should have deleted it. Should have recognized the warning signs. But curiosity is a powerful drug, especially for researchers like me, who've spent careers chasing the boundaries of human consciousness. 2 days later, I was being escorted through security checkpoints deep beneath a nondescript office building in Northern Virginia. The elevator required biometric verification and descended far longer than seemed structurally possible. When the doors finally opened, I stepped into a gleaming white corridor that stretched into the distance. "Dr. Kent," a voice called. "Thank you for joining us." The woman who greeted me was tall, with silver-streaked hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her skin. Dr. Eleanor Voss, project director. Her handshake was firm, clinical, her eyes evaluating me with unsettling intensity. "Before we proceed, I need your signature," she said, sliding a tablet toward me. "Standard non-disclosure agreement." Standard, right. It was 46 pages long, with references to statutes I'd never heard of, and penalties for breach that made my blood run cold. "You understand that what you see today doesn't leave this facility," she continued, not really asking. "The work we're doing here exists beyond conventional classification systems." I signed. God help me, I signed. "Excellent," Dr. Voss said, tucking away the tablet. "Now let me explain Project Threshold." As we walked, she outlined the basics. For decades, various government agencies had been investigating reports of heightened paranormal sensitivity in certain subjects. People who could sense things others couldn't, who experienced visions, premonitions, awareness of entities that existed beyond normal perception. Most humans, Voss explained, operate with significant perceptual filters. Our brains evolved to screen out the vast majority of sensory information we encounter. It's a survival mechanism. "But what if we could temporarily suspend those filters?" she asked, stopping before a heavy metal door. "What if we could create a controlled environment where selected individuals could perceive beyond those limitations?" "And why?" I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. "Would we want to do that?" Voss smiled thinly. "National security, Dr. Kent. There are things in this world that conventional intelligence methods cannot detect, things that represent potential threats we can barely comprehend." The room beyond was massive. A central chamber, cylindrical, surrounded by monitoring stations filled with advanced equipment. In the middle stood what looked like an isolation tank, but far more sophisticated, connected to dozens of sensors and machines I didn't recognize. "This is the threshold chamber," Voss said. "Our attempt to create a controlled gateway to expanded awareness." As she led me around the facility, introducing me to the team of neurologists, physicists, and parapsychologists, I began to understand the scope of what they were attempting. They had been experimenting with combinations of sensory deprivation, electromagnetic field manipulation, and targeted psychotropic compounds, all designed to temporarily alter human perception. "The results have been inconsistent," admitted Dr. Liang, the neuropharmacologist. "Subjects report wildly varying experiences. Some see nothing unusual. Others—" He trailed off. "Others what?" I pressed. "Others don't come back the same," he finished, quietly. Part 2. The Protocol. I spent weeks reviewing their data, subject interviews, brain scans, behavioral analyses. The patterns were fascinating but disturbing. Those who responded most strongly to the protocol showed distinct changes in their amygdala and hippocampus, brain regions associated with fear response and memory formation. But it was the psychological profiles that troubled me most. The vulnerability factors were clear: subjects with childhood trauma, those with certain personality traits, openness to experience, thin mental boundaries, creative imagination. They were the ones who saw through, as the team called it. "This is what we brought you for," Voss told me one evening as I presented my findings. "We need a more reliable protocol, one that can produce consistent results without the side effects." "Side effects?" I asked, looking up from my notes. Dr. Harris, the project's psychologist, cleared his throat. "Persistent hallucinations, sleep paralysis, extreme paranoia. One subject became convinced that something was following him. He took his own life 3 weeks after participation." My stomach knotted. "And you're still running experiments?" "The potential benefits outweigh the risks," Voss said firmly. "Think of it, Dr. Kent. Verified contact with non-conventional intelligences, the ability to perceive threats beyond normal detection. The defense applications alone justify our continued efforts." I should have walked away then. Should have understood what they were really trying to do, but I was already caught up in the possibilities, the scientific breakthrough this represented. If we could safely induce expanded states of awareness, even temporarily, it would revolutionize our understanding of consciousness itself. So I stayed. I designed a new protocol, incorporating elements of guided hypnosis alongside their existing methods. Psychological triggers, carefully selected words, images, and sounds that would bypass the conscious mind's defenses and directly activate deeper brain structures. "The key," I explained to the team, "is to create a state of receptivity without vulnerability. We need subjects who can open themselves to alternative perceptions without losing their psychological anchor." 2 weeks later, we were ready for the first trial of Protocol Threshold 7. Our subject was Dr. Harris himself. He'd volunteered, eager to experience what previous subjects had reported. I stood at the control station, monitoring his vital signs as he was prepped for the chamber. "Remember," I said through the intercom as technicians attached the last of the sensors to his temples, "the triggers are designed to guide you through specific perceptual states. If at any point you feel overwhelmed, the safe word is horizon. Say it, and we'll begin immediate extraction." Harris nodded, his expression a mixture of anticipation and apprehension as the chamber door sealed shut. The protocol began with sensory isolation, darkness, body temperature water, silence. Then came the carefully calibrated electromagnetic pulses, targeting specific brain regions. Next, a precisely measured dose of our compound, a designer psychotropic that enhanced neural plasticity without the disorienting effects of traditional psychedelics. And finally, my contribution, The triggers. Through a specialized audio system, I began the induction sequence, words and phrases delivered in specific patterns and cadences, designed to activate precise neural pathways, opening doors in the mind that evolution had kept firmly shut.
Beyond the threshold of ordinary perception, awareness expanding beyond boundaries, sensing the spaces between spaces.
For 20 minutes, everything proceeded according to plan. Harris's vital signs remained stable. His brain activity showed exactly the patterns we'd predicted: increased activity in the temporal lobes, altered functioning in the default mode network. Then something changed. "His heart rate is spiking," one of the technicians announced, voice tense. On the monitors, Harris's EEG patterns shifted dramatically. Activity unlike anything I'd seen before, not seizure-like, but organized, as if his brain were suddenly processing massive amounts of information. "Dr. Harris," I called through the intercom, "what are you experiencing?" His response came through broken, distorted. "I can see them. They're everywhere. Always been watching us." "Who's watching us, Dr. Harris?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm as the monitoring equipment continued to show alarming readings. "Not who," he whispered. "What?" Then he began to scream. Part 3. Breakthrough. The extraction was chaos. When we opened the chamber, Harris was convulsing, eyes rolled back, mouth frozen in a silent scream. It took 3 of us to restrain him as the medical team administered sedatives. Later, in the recovery room, he lay still, staring at the ceiling with dilated pupils. When he finally spoke, his voice was different somehow. Flatter, as if the emotional centers of his brain had been switched off. "I saw them," he repeated. "They exist in the spaces between our perception, in the corners of rooms, in the static between stations, in the darkness when we close our eyes. They've always been there, watching." "What were they?" Dr. Voss pressed, recording every word. Harris turned to her, his expression disturbingly blank. "They aren't anything we have words for. They're observers, collectors. They feed on awareness itself." "And they noticed you noticing them," I said quietly, a chill running through me. Harris nodded slowly. "They know we've found a way to see them now. And they're curious." That night, as I drove home through pouring rain, I couldn't shake the image of Harris's face. That emptiness, that fundamental alteration. What had he really experienced? Was it just an extreme hallucination? Or had our triggers actually opened some kind of perceptual doorway? I told myself it was just the stress, the lack of sleep, the weight of responsibility for Harris's condition. But as I pulled into my driveway, I couldn't ignore the feeling that something was different, that I wasn't alone. In my darkened house, the shadows seemed deeper than usual. I caught myself avoiding looking directly into corners, afraid of what I might glimpse from the corner of my eye. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined them, the observers gathering around my bed, examining this new human who had helped crack open the door between our worlds. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was just paranoia, psychological contagion from Harris's experience. I returned to the facility determined to review the data objectively, to find the scientific explanation for what had happened. But something had changed at the project too. Dr. Voss was almost feverish with excitement, talking rapidly about confirmation and breakthrough as technicians prepared the chamber for another session. "We're running it again?" I asked, incredulous. "After what happened to Harris?" "Harris is fine," she dismissed. "Temporary disorientation. He's already asking to go back in." I found him in the break room, staring into a cup of untouched coffee. The vacancy in his expression had been replaced with something worse, an intensity, an eagerness that seemed wholly unnatural. "I need to go back," he said before I could speak. "I need to understand them better." "Tom," I said carefully, using his first name, "what you experienced was likely an extreme reaction to the compound, amplified by the electromagnetic stimulation. We need to analyze what happened before risking another exposure." He looked up at me, and I swear his pupils contracted vertically just for a moment, like a cat's. "They're waiting for me," he whispered. "They have so much to show us." I backed out of the room, heart pounding. Something was terribly wrong. This wasn't scientific curiosity. This was obsession. Contamination. In the lab, I found Voss reviewing Harris's brain scans from during the episode. She pointed excitedly to unusual activity patterns in the parietal lobe. "Look at this," she said. "This region processes spatial awareness, helps us form our mental model of physical reality. During his experience, it was receiving input from somewhere else." "That's not possible," I argued. "External stimuli have to come through sensory pathways first." She turned to me, eyes bright with fervor. "Unless there are perceptual channels we don't yet understand. Ways of seeing that bypass conventional sensory mechanisms." A technician called Voss over to another monitor. I couldn't hear their conversation, but her expression changed from excitement to concern, then back to determination. "What is it?" I asked as she returned. "The threshold chamber," she said. "It's registering activity, energy fluctuations, but it's powered down." We hurried to the main lab. The chamber sat dark and silent in the center of the room, yet all around it, monitoring equipment was lighting up, recording some kind of energy signature emanating from within. "It's impossible," the lead technician muttered, checking connections. "There's no power running to the system." As we watched, the readings intensified, temperature dropping, electromagnetic fields fluctuating, and something else, a new reading on a sensor designed to detect quantum fluctuations. "It's like something's trying to come through," whispered one of the researchers. And that's when I realized what we'd done. The triggers, my carefully designed psychological keys, hadn't just opened Dr. Harris's perception. They'd opened a door, and now something was pushing from the other side. Part 4. Containment Breach. The next 72 hours were a nightmare of escalating phenomena and desperate containment efforts. The activity in the chamber continued to grow stronger, despite every attempt to neutralize it. Equipment malfunctioned, lights flickered throughout the facility, and the staff began to change. It started subtly. Researchers forgetting simple procedures, speaking in odd cadences, standing motionless for minutes at a time, staring into empty corners. Then came the whispers. People reporting voices just at the edge of hearing, suggestions and commands that seemed to bypass conscious thought. Dr. Liang was the first to break. We found him in the specimen storage room, surrounded by broken vials of the threshold compound, skin covered in self-inflicted injection marks. He was conscious, but unresponsive, pupils blown wide, mumbling the same phrases over and over. "They see us now, they've always seen us. The door is open, can't close it, won't close it." As medical staff rushed him to the infirmary, I pulled Voss aside. "We need to shut this down," I insisted. "Something has gone catastrophically wrong with the project." But Voss had changed too. The professional demeanor had given way to something almost religious in its intensity. "Wrong?" she echoed. "This is exactly what we were trying to achieve, Dr. Kent. Contact, confirmation, proof that there are intelligences beyond conventional perception." "These intelligences are affecting our people," I argued. "Harris, Liang, something is happening to their minds." "Evolution is happening," she countered. Their awareness is expanding beyond human limitations. Yes, there's an adjustment period, disorientation, but they're adapting. Our argument was cut short by security alerts. Throughout the facility, staff members were behaving erratically. Some had gathered in the main lab surrounding the threshold chamber, staring at it in silent communion. Others were attempting to access secure areas, override safety protocols. They're being influenced, I realized. Whatever's coming through that doorway we opened, it's affecting their minds. Voss's expression hardened. Contain them. Secure the chamber. I need to report this development immediately. But as she turned to leave, I caught her arm. Report to whom, exactly? Who really authorized this project, Eleanor? Her smile chilled me to the bone. There are interests beyond your clearance level, Dr. Kent. Parties who understand the true significance of what we've achieved here. Before I could respond, she pressed her access card to the door panel and slipped through, the security door sealing behind her with finality. I was alone, trapped in a section of the facility with whatever was leaking through from elsewhere, and with the staff members who were increasingly under its influence. The next hours were a desperate exercise in survival and information gathering. I barricaded myself in the data center, using the security cameras to track what was happening throughout the facility. What I witnessed defies rational explanation, but I have to try. The affected staff, now including Harris and at least 12 others, had formed a circle around the threshold chamber. They moved in perfect synchronization, performing gestures that seemed to follow some alien choreography. And as they did, the readings from within the chamber spiked to unprecedented levels. On the monitors, I could see the air around the chamber beginning to distort, as if the fabric of reality itself was stretching, thinning. Dark shapes moved within that distortion, geometries that hurt the eyes to focus on, entities that seemed to exist in more dimensions than our brains could process. And then came the breach. There's no adequate way to describe what happened next. The chamber ruptured. Not physically. The structure remained intact. But something fundamental gave way. On the monitors, I watched as the distortion expanded outward in a shockwave, passing through solid matter as if it weren't there, and through every person it touched. When the wave passed, everyone in the room stood perfectly still for precisely 6 seconds. Then, as one, they turned and looked directly into the security cameras, directly at me. Their eyes, God, their eyes were wrong. Pupils expanded until no white remained, but not black. They reflected the same distortion that had emerged from the chamber, like windows into some impossible elsewhere. One of them spoke. It was Harris's voice, but layered with others, resonating at frequencies that made the camera microphones distort. The threshold is crossed. The awareness is mutual now. We see you. You see us. I ran. God help me. I grabbed what data I could on a portable drive, forced an emergency override on a service exit, and fled that cursed facility. Behind me, alarms continued to blare, but there was no sign of normal emergency response. No security teams, no containment protocols, just silence from the upper levels, as if whoever Voss reported to had already written off everyone inside. Part 5. Aftermath. That was 6 weeks ago. I've been in hiding ever since, moving from motel to motel, paying cash, avoiding cameras. Not because I fear government reprisal, though I'm certainly a liability they'd prefer to eliminate, but because of what followed me out of that place. They're here now, the observers. I see them in reflections, in shadows, in the static on cheap motel televisions, always just at the periphery, never directly observable but unmistakably present. Watching, waiting. Sometimes, in the moments between wakefulness and sleep, I hear whispers, information, knowledge no human was meant to possess. They're telling me things, about their realm, about their kind, about their interest in ours, about what they want. I understand now why Harris and the others surrendered so completely. The temptation of that knowledge is almost irresistible. The promise of awareness beyond human limitations, of secrets revealed, of power. I've been documenting everything, the project details, the trigger sequences, the composition of the compound, the electromagnetic frequencies we used, all of it encrypted and set to be released if I don't enter a code every 24 hours. Not as a threat, as a warning, because the experiment didn't end when I fled that facility. If anything, it's accelerating. The triggers we designed, they're spreading, through the affected staff, through whoever they've come in contact with since. Psychological contagion vectors, transmitting the capacity to perceive them. 3 days ago, I spotted Dr. Harris at a gas station outside Cedar Rapids. He was with 3 people I didn't recognize. A middle-aged woman, a teenage boy, an elderly man. All of them moved with the same unnatural synchronization I'd observed in the lab. All of them had those eyes, normal, until they thought no one was looking. Then suddenly windows into somewhere else. They didn't see me, or pretended not to. But as they drove away, the boy turned and looked directly at my hiding place and smiled. I followed them as best I could. They led me to an abandoned grain silo in the middle of nowhere. By nightfall, over 30 vehicles had arrived, people streaming inside, normal-looking people from all walks of life, a gathering. I dared not get too close, but through binoculars, I caught glimpses through the upper windows. Dozens of people arranged in concentric circles. In the center, something I couldn't quite make out. A shape, a presence, a distortion in the air similar to what had emerged from the chamber. They were communing with it, feeding it with their awareness, and it was growing stronger. I don't know how many such gatherings are happening across the country, across the world. How many people have been converted? How many now serve as conduits for these entities from beyond perception? What I do know is that it's spreading faster than I imagined possible. The triggers we designed were too effective, too contagious. A mimetic virus that reconfigures human perception, creating doorways where there should be walls. And the most terrifying part? I'm not immune. Despite everything I know, despite my desperate efforts to resist, I feel the changes beginning in my own mind. The heightened awareness of spaces that shouldn't exist. The sense of presences just beyond normal perception. The whispers growing louder. Sometimes I wake in the night to find myself standing before mirrors or windows, staring at reflections that aren't quite right. Moving in ways I don't remember commanding. My hands forming gestures I never learned. Last night I found pages of writing I don't remember producing. Equations, diagrams, instructions for constructing something that would amplify the threshold effect exponentially. My own expertise being used against me, channeled through my hands, while something else controlled my mind. I burned the pages, cut my own palms to stay awake. But I can't fight it forever. That's why I'm making this recording, this warning, while enough of me remains to tell the truth. We created a psychological key that unlocks human perception beyond its natural limits. We thought we were expanding consciousness, creating awareness of hidden aspects of reality. But what we actually did was far worse. We created a door, and through that door, something ancient has begun to enter our world. They've been here all along, these observers, in the spaces between moments, in the darkness between stars, watching, waiting for someone to notice them, to acknowledge them, because that acknowledgement, that mutual awareness, is what empowers them to cross over. Perception itself is the key, and now that key has been widely distributed, has begun to replicate itself through human contact, through shared awareness. I believe the project was compromised from the beginning, that certain elements within the government or beyond it knew exactly what would happen, wanted it to happen, have been working toward this moment for decades. Voss's interested parties, the true architects behind Project Threshold. I've tracked financial records, shell companies, mysterious backers. A pattern emerges, the same entities funding similar research globally. Perception alteration, consciousness modification, gateway technologies. They call themselves the Threshold Society. Their symbol is an open door with an eye above it, and their true purpose, I believe, is to serve as harbingers for what's coming through. So consider this my confession, my warning, and perhaps my final act of resistance. If you're experiencing unusual perceptions, glimpses of movement where nothing should be, whispers at the edge of hearing, dreams of impossible geometries, you may already be affected. The triggers could be anywhere now, in articles you've read, videos you've watched, conversations you've had with the wrong people. There's no government containment coming, no rescue operation. Those who could have stopped this are either compromised or complicit. All I can offer is this: stay aware of your own mind. Question sudden obsessions, unusual thoughts, the urge to share specific phrases or ideas. And whatever you do, they're here. I have to go now. If you're watching this, it means my dead man switch activated. Means I've either been taken or converted. Remember, what has been opened cannot easily be closed, but awareness is a double-edged sword. If enough people understand what's happening, maybe, just maybe. One final thought before I go. Isn't it interesting how certain combinations of words, certain ideas can change your perception? Even now, as you've listened to my story, patterns have been forming in your mind. Connections being made, doors being unlocked. Look carefully at the shadows in your room. Are you really alone right now? No, don't listen to that. It's already happening. They're using me to spread the
Conclusion. You've been listening to The Government Experiment Used Psychological Triggers to Open Paranormal Awareness. We can't close what we opened here on the Obscuralore Vault. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, or made you afraid to look into the dark corners of your room, consider subscribing to our channel for more tales from beyond the veil of ordinary perception. Like and share this video with friends who appreciate the darker mysteries of our world. Remember, the line between fiction and reality is often thinner than we'd like to believe. Sleep well, if you can, and maybe leave a light on tonight. Until next time, this has been the Obscuralore Vault, where the darkest secrets are waiting to be discovered.